Greetings, loyal listeners. You are now listening to an encore presentation of a B30 sharing session. So please stand by as the previously recorded podcast will begin shortly. Thank you once again for choosing B30 for your listening pleasure. There's a story floating around for a while now. There's a rise among 20-year-olds living in that hip Brooklyn neighborhood. Apparently, these hipster kids have now developed a taste for sorcery. Yes, you heard it right. In the 21st century, these new school kids, the quote-unquote millennial generation, are now setting a new trend where they're basically practicing witchcraft. It's the new in thing now. This thing is also showing up in the West Coast as well. For those living in the Bay Area, Oakland, San Fran, you now have these chill, mellow, multitasking hipster psychics who are giving out card readings over the phone, and then they would text photos of the layout of the card readings on the table. There you have it. New school, sorcery, witchcraft, the occult going on. It's kind of like, if you want to be hipster nowadays, you got to be into the occult. So I'm just going to state the obvious here. Why are smart, savvy, and usually pretty skeptical, like 18 to 30-year-olds, why are they looking into tarot cards and astrology charts and having seances and these full moon ceremonies? Yeah, why are these kind of smart, skeptical, savvy youngsters resorting or trying out the occult? And more importantly, what does sorcery have to offer that Christianity isn't able to provide? So I did a little digging. I found a pretty interesting response as to why people are trying out sorcery and Christianity just isn't an option for them. A New York University art professor explains that this kind of occult revival among young adults may be connected to post-recession anxiety. I guess what that means is young adults are trying out sorcery because of this kind of post-graduation job market situation, and Obamacare is a mess and cost of living is just nuts. So, your typical soul-crushing economic financial worries in life. So this post-recession anxieties may be a reason why, kids are going outside of the box to try to figure out how to make it in this cruel world. So just an idea that this New York University art professor put out. Basically, sorcery gives people a sense of empowerment, so they can make spells and make potions and summon demons or whatever, and they have a sense of control. They can actively do something to kind of manipulate their own fate in this world. And I think a primary example of this would be a 30-year-old tarot card reader in LA. She shared that she started reading cards professionally after she graduated from college because, she couldn't find a job. And this is what she has to say, and I quote, "They're untapped resources when you feel like you have a loss of power." End quote. Now get this. Business is so good for this 30-year-old card reader from LA that she can pay her rent by booking private appointments and certain conventions and events. This is self-reported. She recently did 40 consecutive readings in one day at some New York book fair or something. So I'm just going to throw some numbers out there. Say around number 15, 20 bucks a consultation. You get 40 a day. Do the math. That's not bad for one day's work. And say you work 4 or maybe 5 days a week, give yourself a weekend, that's a pretty decent living. I don't know what the tax situation would be for that, but I'm just saying. But that's not all though. There's also several more reasons why the occult and sorcery is so appealing. Elite astrologer by the name of Susan Miller, and I think she reads horoscopes for a living, she describes her work as mathematical. So that's one reason why people kind of like the occult or say card readings, astrology, because astrology has a firm structure. She actually advises people on very specific things like student loans, and get this, she attracts 6 million visitors every month. Now, I'm guessing this isn't all face-to-face visits. Maybe this includes online social media views and hits, but still, the self-reported 6 million visitors a month, that's quite high. And to add to that, 73% of those 6 million visitors, 73% of them went to college or graduate school. So you're having these rational
intelligent people who actually crave religion or some form of spirituality. But unfortunately, they aren't craving Christianity. But I can see why, because it seems like, when you're reading astrology signs and like cards, it's more straightforward and to the point. Like you're going to get the answer you want to hear, or you're going to get an answer to a very specific question you have. Whereas if you like go to a church service and you sit there and you listen to a sermon, it's kind of a 50-50 chance that the sermon topic or won't be 100% relevant to you. But, if you go read cards, you go, dude, I want to know if I should get a student loan. Bam, right there. You get a straightforward answer. So I can kind of see why the occult and sorcery is kind of appealing to the new hipster generation. Now, as for another reason why young adults are into sorcery, a Newsweek article was getting feedback from 20-year-olds, and they said that they appreciate the supernatural or the occult supernatural because it's a non-denominational method of self-exploration, and it reminds them that the world is both older and bigger than they are. So here's the good news. Young people, or people in general, are sick of an absence of order in life. They do have an interest to explore spirituality. So that's the good news. But the bad news is, they feel like committing to just one worldview, or for example, just committing to Christian faith alone, is just too narrow-minded. Like it holds back true enlightenment. I guess the church demands of, God and Jesus is the one way, the only way, the true light. Like it doesn't sit well with this new generation of spiritual youngsters who want to explore spirituality. They don't want to get tied down to just one aspect. They want to try other religions and put them all together and use them in one big bag of tools and make things work for you kind of thing. So, plain English, people like sorcery because it's flexible and there's low commitment. Those are really good sell points. There's some testimonies from like young 20-year-olds saying, the great thing with astrology is, I quote, you can sort of take it or leave it. It can give you your motivation for the day, or you can skip it and be like, end quote. Again, I'm going to be honest. The way how when you actually ask people who are into witchcraft and sorcery why they're into it, and they kind of tell you the answer, I can now see why they can relate to it and see its appeal. Because Christianity is like the complete opposite. It's offensive. You open the Bible and it usually tells you where your faults and flaws are. It literally tells you are nothing without God in Christ. So I can see why, Christian belief rubs these new school youth the wrong way. Because, I don't know. Just from how I hear the testimonies from people, it seems like sorcery is really chilled, laid back, flexible, low commitments. It kind of opens your mind. So to recap what we have so far, here's the appeal of sorcery. You have a sense of control when you're like doing seances and like chants and doing card readings because you can manipulate or summon spiritual forces. Ooh, that sounds like fun and kind of exotic and invigorating. And Christianity is like totally different. It's like the opposite. Instead of trying to get control and manipulate life in your favor, Christianity tells you to surrender yourself to a higher purpose, and that it isn't about looking after yourself. There you have it. Number 2 on the recap of the appeal of sorcery. It's high in flexibility, low in commitment. So basically you can believe in a whole bunch of stuff at the same time. It's kind of like the more the better kind of attitude, because you have more bags of tricks to kind of manipulate the earthly realm in your favor. Which makes sense, the more weapons, more tools you have, why not? But again, Christianity is the complete opposite. It requires your complete commitment, allegiance, loyalty, devotion. There is absolutely no room for other religions. So love others, witness Christ-like behavior in a selfless manner, but no mixing with other religions. Now, here is the third appeal of sorcery, and it actually appeals to women because it's kind of a gender equality reason. Women and the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered, and queer community are particularly attracted to sorcery because it's not patriarchal. If you don't like that kind of social science term, it basically means witchcraft and sorcery is not male-centered. It's not a male-dominated religion. So a 25-year-old freelance editor from LA shared that queer women like herself are drawn to the occult because they don't want to be talked down by priests and pastors. Now, I'll admit, on the surface, Christianity does look like a male-centered faith. I mean, the way we conceptualize the central figures of our religion is with male-dominated figures. We conceptualize God as a father, male. We conceptualize our Savior Jesus as a son, male. We give a shout out to Mary Magdalene, that sixth man in basketball or in sports, or the unsung hero. And you have Saint Mother Mary, but with all due respect and for all intensive purposes, she's kind of viewed as a vessel. So I can see why women's studies department or feminists don't really take too kindly to how Christianity presents itself. Now, I'm sure some of you optimistic Orthodox Christian listeners out there are probably thinking, I'm not worried. This kind of hipster sorcery thing is just a fad, like when people wore puka shells or like cargo pants during the late 90s. Anyways, look, once these kind of hipster kids grow up, reach their late 20s into the early 30s, they're going to settle down and this witchcraft stuff's going to die out. I have faith in Christianity. It's kind of like existed for thousands of years. It's life-giving, and its truth will shine through, and people will eventually come back and know its true value someday. Kind of that sunshine and lollipops view. And to those who do feel that way, good for you. Yeah, I know. Keep up that good positive attitude. But the startling reality is sorcery, witchcraft, the occult, it's making a pretty impactful mark on youth culture right now. I mean, one example is the occult is just blowing up in mainstream TV. I think there's these shows out called like Witches of East End, and I think I've seen a commercial of American Horror Story Coven. I think you can Netflix those, but I'm just saying those are just a few of the kind of witch, occult, creepy TV shows that debuted recently. And another example is the occult lifestyle is really slowly kind of creeping into that socio-cultural routine that youngsters have. So, for example, a typical day off for like a LA, San Fran kind of hipster would probably entail you wake up, have breakfast, get your tarot cards read, and then while you get them read, you could go next door and shop at like vintage stores for like a new blazer or something. And on the other end of the country, say in Brooklyn, you have these wannabe witches who apparently spend their Friday nights attending magic workshops hosted by the Moon Church. Yes, there's a Moon Church in Brooklyn, apparently. And it's a community of women trying to give new life to the archetype of the witch. And also, I heard you can get like these creepy prayer candle thingies for $14 on Urban Outfitters. I heard it's so popular, you have to order them like a month in advance. So mainstream TV, part of the social lifestyle, the occult is catching on. And another thing is sorcery is spreading like wildfire on social media, apparently. I hear like people are using Pinterest to like pin and share images of alchemy themed imagery, and there's a lot of captions and comments saying, and I quote, "Cute girls in long gauzy dresses performing seances in Oakland," or something. On Tumblr, there's like a popular blogging community called Coven, and it talks about like how to have like safe Ouija board use and coming up with potions and herbs for balancing and cleansing. So in the blogging world, it's making a mark. And on Facebook, I think you can find a page called like the Witch's Compass. It's like this interactive ritual environment, and I don't know, you celebrate stuff and you participate in sorcery. I don't know, it's just a whole bunch of subculture, cult-like kind of activity. Cult-like, not like people are gonna drink Kool-Aid and kill themselves, but cult-like as in a cult-like, strong, devoted following developing in youth culture. So, before I end this session and ramble way too long and kind of leave you loyal listeners in kind of a deep panic about how, Christianity's losing ground today and sorcery's winning this spiritual competition for the souls of these young minds and people. Ooh. I guess that's kind of true. They are kind of gaining momentum. But my main concern is when I see sorcery's success among youth culture, could this be an indication that we as followers of Christ, or for those listening who identify themselves as followers of Christ, are we doing a really poor job communicating and witnessing the gospel in a refreshing manner? When Jesus was on earth, he did a great job. He made Christianity relevant and impactful. After he departed and thousands of years later, it seems like we're not picking up the slack. Let that kind of guilt trip sink in. We should end this discussion here for now. So thanks for listening, and goodbye.